Hello, and if you are joining us for the first time, welcome. We are Remarkist, communities of fans who watch television shows and movies together virtually, but as if we're in the same room, gathered around the same television. We do this using the Clubhouse app, and we would love to have you join us for future watches. You can simply make an account on Clubhouse and search for our name, Remarkist, to find our club. Or if you'd like more information about the project as a whole, please visit remarkist.com to learn lots more about who we are and what we do. As for our recordings, remember that we always get our episodes started but paused at the 0-second mark and count down to pressing the play button together at the same time. That way, our experience can be as synced up as possible. You can pause this for a moment to get that set up, or if you're ready to go, let's get this thing started.
Now officially recording the episode, and we are going to start our episodes on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. So this is something that kind of comes back a lot, right? These like little productions.
This is a town that loves to celebrate, as Rory mentions to Dean once, but I mean, the scale of their productions as a town is astonishing.
That's for sure.
Those legs look like they're from a different baby. It looks like it's like a Frankenstein baby.
Yeah, that was definitely Frankenstein.
It's like the Toy Story spider baby.
Correct.
Yes, exactly.
Also, from the angle Rory's holding it, it looks like it has no eyes.
Is it one of those dolls that just the eyes close when it goes back or something?
Maybe.
I think this is like the first, like the only like Christmas episode of the whole series, because they don't usually do very like super holiday specific stuff on this show. So I actually forgot that this was like, you know, a Christmas time thing. They do Christmas again season 7, but you're right, that Christmas is usually very absent.
Yeah, Christmas in season 7, Santa's Secret Stuff is the episode.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah, I wonder why.
A lot of people don't do episodes for like holidays because of when they air. They don't because of how they air. Because then they do it in December. Then if they do it, it's just how they air on TV.
That ends up being a little more complicated.
Also, there's a theory that because Amy's Jewish.
That would make sense.
That was my understanding as well, was the reason.
Well, also, Stars Hollow celebrates just about every other holiday.
And a lot of made-up holidays.
Yeah.
Can I just say that Narcolepsy Boy is one of my favorite names for him?
Yes.
Yes, I did.
That was probably the weirdest thing I read for school. Smelly sex juice.
One of my favorite lines.
This part reminds me of a friend's thing, a friend's, what do you call it, theme that Friends did. Kind of ripped off Friends here, just saying.
I love how micromanaging Michelle is and also not willing to actually do anything useful. Did anyone else have the pastel frosted eyeshadow in 2000, or was it just me?
It was almost me, but alas, I think just you. By the way, folks, I am a winter. I found that out yesterday.
Woohoo! You took the test?
I took the test.
Where is the test so that I can take the test?
I'll post it. Somebody posted it on Facebook. I'll just reshare.
Awesome.
Also, was Lorelai lying when she said that she had to work late because she's sending Rory, but she's still at home. She's not at work.
Oh, that's a good catch. I'm going to say that she didn't actually have to work.
I think she just wanted to avoid having to be there for longer than she had to.
Yeah, that's exactly what I think.
It bugs me that we never find out what's in that box because I want to know what Lorelai thinks that her parents will like for Christmas.
It's the monkey lamp.
I love it.
Or a monkey lamp replica. That denial from Emily to face things drives me insane.
Yeah, I could. That's definitely one of the more annoying traits for me too. Yeah.
I just noticed the ornament that says no pouting.
It's a regular scooter. Why do I feel like the Razor scooter would have been a Kirk job?
Also, can we all agree that this is one of the most aggravating Christmas songs known to man?
I ate my salad like that tonight.
This is actually one of the Christmas songs I really enjoy.
I'm surprised to see Lorelai eating salad.
I was going to say the same thing, that they even have salad in their fridge that hasn't gone bad.
I mean, wait a minute. Never mind. That's
And
later.
it still hasn't gone bad. It's like fresh.
I thought that these ready packs were kind of a new thing. I didn't realize that they were back in 2000.
They were there, but they were expensive. They're not as easily found.
And I think it's just lettuce. It's not like a salad mix. It looks like it's just lettuce.
That momentary flinch when she pops the shade up, I just love that. He's like, oh no. This easiness with getting along with Lorelai is something I always liked about Dean.
Yeah, I like it too.
If I can find it, I'll send it to you. Somebody made a fan video of Lorelai and Dean being together, and it sounds insane, but it actually makes a lot of sense once you watch it.
See, I feel like like carolers and all that kind of stuff are sort of the sweet spot for Gilmore Girls. So I'm surprised that Amy wouldn't have wanted to do more of them.
Maybe that's what the troubadours were for. As a former handbell choir member, it was a really weird set of bells to choose to play that song. Bad boy, what you gonna do?
Luke's insights into Lorelai are hilarious. The Santa burger.
Oh,
That looks so gross.
There's food and people and a burger with a face. That would be me in a crisis.
Can I have a timestamp, please? $21:03.
Oh, that's very sweet. This is interesting.
Such a good monologue. I love her. Jane Lynch is so good.
Jane Lynch.
Until she works against actors who are shorter height, you really don't realize how tall she is. She's a very tall woman.
This makes me wonder if Emily doesn't have Lorelai's cell phone number.
Right.
How that Lorelai comes through in a crisis.
She's very resourceful, which is something I admire about her.
Technically, you're not supposed to, but that's okay. I love that Rory knows Luke well enough to know not to ask him if he wants any coffee.
Is that a Luke thing? I didn't know that Luke didn't like coffee.
Well, he's just very healthy. He doesn't drink like the coffee. He doesn't eat the junk that they eat. He's very health conscious.
And he's constantly trying to talk them out of having coffee.
I think in an earlier episode that y'all have already watched, he was saying that he was trying to give Lorelai herbal tea and a balance bar.
How can you not love Luke?
I like Luke.
He's adorable.
Did she get pets from a dispenser?
Yeah, I thought the same thing.
That is, I've never seen that. for that is kind of cool.
What's interesting though is, of course, we all know where. Well, actually, I won't spoil. Sorry, that's me getting into spoiler territory.
Boom shot. The boom just dipped down over the top of the hallway, ever so briefly.
I don't think that showed up on the DVD.
I'm watching the DVD. It was just the briefest of moments. It just dipped in and out.
I saw it too.
Right across the top. Oh, Ed Herman.
I can very much relate to this because I am also get very queasy when it comes to anything doctory, hospital-y, blood cutting, any of that stuff.
So was my husband. I just had surgery like a week and a half ago, and he was like, I can just drop you off and pick you up, right?
Yeah, that's.
What's funny is if it's in real life, I'm fine with it. But if it's in like a war movie or something, like it really gives me like the squeebies. But like in real life, it's fine.
I have the same deal with my husband.
However, he went first. This thing breaks my heart.
Oh.
No spoilers. That performance is just, woof. That performance is just golden.
I love Emily and Richard's relationship. Just like their couple goals to the end.
I love the Chiro comment.
I love the fact that those are coin-operated vending machines. I can't remember the last time I saw one of those in person.
Ooh, this is a scene that I've been waiting for.
There you go, John.
There it is.
I just noticed that Luke kind of has like a soul patch over the 5 o'clock shadow, and I really dislike that a lot. I never noticed that before.
I want to talk about that idiot line afterwards.
Mm-hmm.
It's weird to see Ed Herman laying down because he's just so tall and such a big presence. It's weird seeing him held like this.
The knight in shining armor.
I've always wanted to know where Lorelai's coat went. I think it's funny that in just 10 episodes, they've convinced us that a forward baseball cap looks wrong.
It did look very strange on her when she had it on the other way. I think generally they're very strange hats.
Nice.
Oh, the chemistry. Good Hal.
John, did you ever wonder where the blue hat came from before?
So I didn't really, that actually didn't even cross my mind until you just said it. So that hat stays with him the rest of the series.
Mm-hmm. Pretty much, although there's times where it comes off, and that's telling too.
Where it comes off, and you mean where he just takes it off for a moment, or where he switches it for a different hat?
He switches it for a different hat, right?
Huh. Well, we'll see when that happens.
I'm opening up the floor, the couch to everyone, the bean bags. So if you want to raise your hand and come up.
The couch is magically extended. So it's just a much longer couch than it was before. But if you find that creepy and weird, you can grab a bean bag.
You can only come if you bring good snacks.
So John, I was gonna ask you, John, you got to start with the scene between Emily and Luke, because you said you were waiting for that.
Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I think in a previous episode, then I mentioned that I was sort of eager to see, the two of them have a scene together. Like, how is Emily going to? I actually didn't expect it to go that way. That moment where she says that you're idiots is very interesting, because it says a lot about Emily. It says a lot more about Emily than I think that we would assume from what we've seen so far about what Emily values, right? Unless I misinterpreted that line.
I think she thought they should be together. I think that's
right.
how I always took it.
Yeah. So I interpreted that as, you guys are idiots. You're sort of staring the right person for you. You've got the right person for you, like right in front of your face, and you're not seeing it, right? So then we have to ask ourselves, then, like, what does Emily value as the right type of person, right? And I would have until now assumed that it'd be somebody that is sort of high society and and fits into that world. But it seems as though that isn't necessarily what is important to Emily, or as important to Emily. And so I just would love to hear what some of you think. Well, about that moment, whether you think that's the right interpretation that I have, that she does think that they're right for each other, and why would somebody who is so picky about their world and and their daughter's life and everything being so manicured, why they would think somebody like Luke would be the perfect person for them?
But no spoilers.
Without spoilers. I mean, just like from right now, like imagining you've never seen anything past this, and all you've seen is an Emily who's like all about parties and manners and all of this very upper crust life, and she basically says in so many words to Luke that you're both idiots for not realizing that that you guys should be together.
I think in this moment it's because he was there for her. Like he or she thought they were on a date, and then they both say they're not on a date, that she was eating at Luke's and he brought her there. And I think Emily sees that as a good man doing a good thing, and maybe that he might be good for her daughter. At least that's how she's seeing him right now. And that's what I think anyway. You know, she's kind of upset and sad and not really thinking her usual things about life. She's thinking about the other kinds of things, the important small things.
I think in that moment, because like, you know, when she has that scene with Richard where she demands that he goes first, I think that's like her first real glimpse at the thought that she could lose him, and you know how he's been such a pivotal part of her life and how he is her partner in every way. And so I think it makes her see past all those high society things that she thinks that are important and realizes that it really comes down to having the right person in your life. And I think she sees that in Luke.
Well, and I think that at the same time, it kind of is, Emily plays the duality so well that while she thinks that Luke is the right person for Lorelai, she also thinks that he's not suitable at all, but she has to pick her battles with Lorelai over what they're going to disagree about.
I actually had, I think, a different interpretation. I didn't take that comment as like she thought Luke was the right person for her. I think that she's just super like kind of aware and insightful, so she was picking up on these like clues, like even back when in the episode with the birthday parties where he brings the ice, where I think she was very aware that obviously Luke seemed to really like her, and I think she could tell that Lorelai really liked him, and then she was just sort of like kind of tired, like, why don't you guys just, you know, get on with it already? Like, you're idiots if you're not seeing this with each other.
Right. Not necessarily that she approves of it, just more kind of like I'm more like she's saying like, I'm not an idiot, you know, like, yeah, I can clearly see what's going on. Not like I think that, like, not that I'm loving the idea that my daughter would be with, you know, a schlub like you, but at the same time, I'm also just like, you know, come on, stop deluding yourselves, you know?
Yeah, exactly.
This seemed like the first glimpse of them possibly building some sort of better relationship between Lorelai and Emily. It just, they kind of came off like being in that tragedy of not knowing what's going on and, you know, coming together. So that was kind of nice to see, is like, for once they weren't like kind of at each other.
Yeah, in general, I thought it was interesting, like, that the show, and this is so, I mean, this is just so like, it's so like life, right? Where everyone is upset with one another. You know, you can't imagine how people will be able to sort of, how and who will break to, you know, to start the making up process. And then something happens, you know, something big happens that everyone has to, you know, they just springs everybody into action, and everyone has to be on the same page, and it ends up acting as this sort of catalyst for reunification. And that, to me, it felt like that's what this episode was about.
I agree with you, John. And I agree with what you said earlier about Emily. Someone else said it too. I wasn't sure who said it, but how Emily noticed their chemistry and just was like, well, you're idiots because I can see it. And I don't approve of it, but you're idiots and you should do something about it because it's clearly there and you're stupid for not noticing it. So yeah, I definitely agree that that's how she took it. I never thought that she approved of their relationship at all, but I definitely think that he saw their chemistry and was like, yeah, you should do something about this because it's obvious. And it's fun to be back with you guys. I haven't been back all week because I had to go to bed early during the week, but I look forward to Fridays now because I can join you guys and watch episodes. So this is fun. I'm glad to be back. And I'm actually watching the show for the first time with my brother. I've been trying to get my brother to watch it my entire life. I've watched Gilmore Girls since I was 7, and I'm almost 26 now. So I've been watching the show religiously for about 18 years, and I've been begging my brother for 18 years to watch the show with me. And during quarantine, we started watching one show at a time. Like, we each picked shows to watch. And so we first watched Avatar. That was his pick. And then then we watched Legends of Korra, and then now this is my pick for Gilmore Girls. And he finally agreed to watch it with me. And he's loving it. We are currently on season 2, episode 13. We're about to start, and we only watch it when he's off from work. But he's loving it, and so I'm really, really excited that I can finally watch it with him. So it's even more fun getting to watch you watch it. We're getting to watch it with you for the first time as well, considering you were in the show. So it's really fun to see your perspective as well. And then also,
wait, is your brother watching it with us here as well?
No, he's at work right now, but he works nights. But no, but we're watching it on our own separately when he's off from work.
Is it possible that we'll be able to catch up to where you are, and then he can join us for a few of these?
That would be great. I don't know. It depends on what time he gets home, because he sometimes, depending on the day, he works like late at night, and then sometimes he has morning shifts now, so maybe he'll be able to join us. That would be great. He would love that. He has an Android phone, so he'd have to watch through Instagram, or he could just sit with me while we listen. That'd be fine too.
Yeah, I just imagine he'd sit with you.
Yeah, but yeah, that would be great. I would love that, and I'm sure he would love to get to hear your opinion on the show as well, considering you're in it. We're not on season 3 yet, so I can't wait. I can't wait for you to get to season 3 so you can watch yourself join the show. I'm excited to see your reaction.
I am not.
To Brian joining
I
the
am
show.
not actually. I am. I mean, obviously, I'm loving the show and want to get to it from a story perspective, but of course, I'm very nervous about seeing myself for the first time after all these years.
Of course, naturally. We actually met during the virtual fan fest. You came into the gazebo room, and I was in the gazebo room. I am one of the gazebo girls, along with T, actually. Hi, T. And so it's nice to hang out with you again.
Awesome. Does anybody else have any thoughts on this? Now I'm starting to see this a little bit clearer. That she. I don't know. I mean, what's everybody else's interpretation? Is the consensus that she's not necessarily approving of Luke, but like, but she sort of, she sees what's going on and realizes that they don't, just thinks that they're idiots for that reason.
Yeah, I think she's a this woman, and I think that she's just, in her mind, she's probably just stating the obvious. I don't think she's going with the intent of like, oh, you guys are meant to be and you're so perfect together. I don't get that impression, but I think that in this moment, she definitely enjoys Luke for who he is, what he did for, the family by helping to bring Lorelai. But I don't, I think she's just verbalizing her thoughts.
She'd still be much happier. It seems like she'd be much happier if Christopher came back and it all just sort of worked out well, and Lorelai and Christopher got back together and they moved into a nice house down the street from them. Am I getting that right?
Absolutely.
Yes, that's what she'd want, right? That's the sense that I get.
Yeah,
so
far. Absolutely.
But I also think the timing of that conversation is really important for why she called them idiots. This is right after she spoke to Richard and she was contemplating not having him. And so she's going through the emotions of the thoughts of like what her life would be without him. And then she's seeing these two people who clearly have chemistry, who might be wasting their opportunity to have what she had with Richard.
Right.
So I don't
That's
think
what I
it's
was
necessarily that it's about Luke and that she likes Luke or approves of Luke, but it's like, it's so obvious, it's right there. And look at what I would have missed out on if I didn't go with Richard. Why are you guys not trying it?
Right. And also like what happens if if something happens to one of you, you'll never even have that opportunity. Like every day that goes by is a missed opportunity.
John, my friend Hannah has a question for you.
Oh, Hannah, what's up?
Yeah. Well, the question that she had was regarding the reaction that you said that with Luke, when he kept like looking down and he didn't want to see the medical stuff and everything like that. You were like, it's relatable. She'd like to know how you reacted when your baby girl was born.
I was actually just thinking that. Believe it or not, I was fine. Although for months leading up to that, my wife was convinced that I wouldn't be able to do it. Right? Like she was constantly like, are you gonna be there for me? And I was like, I'm good. I think I'm good. I'm good. But I don't know what it was about that particular experience, because I was there the whole time. And that for whatever reason, maybe the adrenaline or something, that I just, it didn't faze me at all. Not one bit. But in general, yeah, like people in pain, skin being cut, poked, pricked, whatever, like all that stuff really just doesn't, I just don't do well with it. Even just like getting the vaccine, I was like hyperventilating, just like sitting there as they were like preparing the needle. But good question. Actually, as I was saying it, I was thinking about that. I was thinking, yeah, but I made it through Josie's birth. So, I don't really know why.
Be prepared that being a daddy means you're going to see that a lot with your kids, though.
Oh, like scrapes and cuts and all of that.
And cuts and they're already freaked out, so you can't be freaking out.
Oh no, yeah. See that? I mean, this is sort of what I was saying the other day about, yesterday about. I relate to Emily's sort of inability to control her stress, or when her stress goes really high, like she's just the worst of herself. So like that is definitely something that I'm a little afraid of, right? That the scariness and the all of that will, yeah, I got to work on that. I just really got to work on that, because if I see a cut on her and I start freaking out, that's probably not good.
My husband is
when it's your own kid.
Yeah, it's different when it's your kid. My husband's the same way. When he sees blood, he'll pass out. But we have 3 boys, and they've had scrapes and cuts, and one cut like part of the thing, part of the pad of the finger off, and he was fine in.
Oh my God! Even just saying that, like even you just saying that.
He did just fine. It's like when it will freak her out. So you'll be fine. I think you'll be fine. Don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think the dad adrenaline will like kick in and you'll take care of it. And then maybe like after it's all over, you might be like, oh my God, that was horrible. But you won't, like in the moment, you won't feel that way. You'll just be like, I just need to take care of this. And then
Babsy is standing here just smiling. She's just loving. She's just loving this conversation.
But you'll see that in later seasons of various characters, like act on that parental adrenaline, and just like things that you would never see them freak out about or not freak out about, and just totally change when there's a child they're responsible for. I don't have my own kids, but I'm a summer camp director, so I'm like the one that has to take kids to the ER, and I like gag when people like have a hangnail, but a child could be like needing stitches and I'm totally fine until afterwards, and I'm like, holy moly, what did we just do? I can't believe I just sat through that.
Well, one of the worst for me are paper cuts, and I just remember getting a heck of a lot of paper cuts as a kid. So that already is something that I'm thinking about. I'm already thinking about her getting paper cuts.
This conversation keeps getting harder and harder to listen.
But
I'm not in the medical field.
But yeah,
I'm not saying I can't. I just the things you're talking about. You're the way you're describing how you feel when you see things. I can relate to that. And when I was young, my neighbor's brother cracked the back of his skull open.
Oh my
that
God.
was the day I realized I never could do anything where I'd have to see that in person because it was my job. I was like 8, and I was like, I never, and I still can't deal with it. And I have that fear of needles too. The dentist is even hard for me, but that's a whole nother thing. So I'll stop. Sorry.
Let me ask, just generally to the room, what is the general, like, how does everyone generally feel about this episode? Do you guys rank this episode high? And then sort of related question, does the fandom rate this episode high?
There's
This
some
is one of
iconic
my-
things, like the Santa burger.
Yeah,
It's
the
pretty
Santa burger is
iconic.
everything. Yeah,
And the hat, of course.
the hat. Yep, it's one of my favorites. Absolutely, because there's so much development with Luke and Lorelai in this episode. So, and even with Emily and Luke and everything. So yeah, it's one of my favorites.
Man, if
I
you're
think
if you're an Emily fan, this episode has like probably the best Emily moments. I mean, for me, just that scene between her and Richard in the room was just
Oh yeah,
also,
and her and Richard too. Yeah, absolutely.
can we talk about that moment in the room between
Oh,
Lorelai and Richard? The just no speaking moment, like
yeah,
where
no words, but said everything.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that was one of my favorite moments. And
Just
no
when his
spoilers,
eyes
but-
focus on her.
okay, so
Yeah.
what's going on
Yeah.
there? Like I'd love to just hear what you guys are feeling. I mean, I kind of get what's going on there from sort of deeper intuitive level, but is there anybody here who feels they can articulate that moment?
I actually feel like that moment shows like how much Lorelai is like her mom, because like in the scene with Emily and Richard, like Emily's totally avoidant of talking about the possibility of Richard passing. Like she cannot handle like any of that. So then the fact that like Lorelai was avoiding going into the room, and then when she was there, she didn't really know what to say. I just feel like it really showed how similar they are. That like the thought of dealing with really uncomfortable emotions or like that grief of losing Richard, like neither one of them could deal with it.
Well, I thought it showed how much they actually really care about each other, and then how much she loves her father without ever really saying it, and that he realizes it, and he cares a lot about her too. It's just I don't know. I just thought it was a very obviously highly emotional sort of thing between them, but and as soon as she wanted to say something, everybody walked in.
He's such a big, somebody even said it, somebody up here even mentioned it, he's such a big person. To the idea that he was laying down, who was that? Was that you, Hillary?
Yeah.
Said like that it's like so crazy to see Ed Herman, or Richard, let's say, such a big man, big presence, lying down. I think that there was some of that going on in the moment between her and seeing her father there, just seeing this big presence of a man who she probably always viewed. She even talks about earlier with Luke, where she's like he was a good man. He of course she's like already talking about him as though he's gonna die, or as though he's already died, and so you get a sense that she always viewed her father as this like larger than life presence in their world, and to see him reduced to this hospital bed, being with tubes and not being able to take care of himself. I think that was just a different perspective on her father than she'd ever seen before. At least that's how it felt to me.
Yeah, my dad is a lot like Richard and a lot like Ed Herman. He's 6'6". He's always been like the biggest person in the room to me. Like when I meet other tall people, I'm like, are they as tall as dad? And when I find out that they're not, that they seem bigger, it's because like I see him every day. But he was in the hospital for like 10 days once with a broken ankle, and it felt to me to stay around the clock with him. And that's absolutely what you're feeling in that moment, that like this gigantic person that has been your stronghold, that has held your hand your whole life, is like not able to sit up or get up or do anything for himself. And it's very strange.
Another thing I noticed is that it almost looked as if Richard was about to begin to cry, but then the rest of the family, enters the room. So before the two of them can even be truly honest with each other and say things, that I guess it was kind of broken up in that moment. And I really see that this scene is one of the most pivotal throughout the entire Gilmore Girls series, because it really shows fans that despite Lorelai's tough exterior and her insistence that she does not need her parents or anybody else, in her life, I think deep down she still has this extremely close attachment to them. And I think that's kind of what we were seeing there in that scene.
Yeah, and that kind of goes. That's sort of in line with the conversation that she has in the car with Luke about her father, right? Like as soon as she realizes that, like she goes about life sort of taking them for granted, right? Like she just sort of imagines they're always going to be there. They're always going to be this annoying thing in her life that, that she has sort of constantly being struggling against. But then as soon as it hits her that she may lose them, well, at least him in this example, she suddenly starts realizing all of the things about him that are good, which are also that's also a very typical life thing,
Well, I think it was like really fitting for their relationship, because most of the interaction with her parents is usually just fighting with Emily, and he's always kind of like quiet in the scene, or maybe says one or two things. So I think it was quite fitting that there wasn't really any words. They just kind of like exchanged that moment. And, I think it also is like the father-daughter relationship is a little bit more like that's her daddy. I think it's a little bit more emotional.
So I always see this scene, like when she walks in and they lock eyes, in my head, he's seeing her as a little girl, and she's looking at him from the perspective of a little girl staring up at the daddy. Like it's that classic of like, daddy protect me, but I don't know how to say it. And so that's why she can't speak. She doesn't understand how her big daddy is there in that moment. And he's not seeing her as a grown woman. He's seeing her as that little girl, and he wants to protect her, but he doesn't know how, or he can't. And I don't know why, but that's always how it flashes in my head when I see that scene.
Mm-hmm.
That's perfect. Yeah.
That's so beautiful.
For sure.
Hi guys. Going off of like his big presence and everything, I never understood it before, and then my grandpa had ended up in the hospital, and I remember walking into the room, and I practically had that same moment with my grandpa. There was no words. We just stared at each other, and it was like this whole, you're supposed to be the big guy, you're supposed to be the father or the grandfather. I wasn't really close with my dad, so he was like my father presence. And it's a scary moment to see them laying there, and they look so small compared to what you're used to. I think that was what's going through Lorelai's head in that moment.
Yeah, certainly. I mean, that's definitely what I picked up on. And also, we have to remember, in that moment, we still don't know whether he's going to make it, right? Like, up until then, there's still lots of question marks. And then suddenly we're interrupted by doctor comes in and, makes light of everything, and everything is going to be fine, right? So in those moments, there's also sort of this like, are we saying goodbye to each other thing? At least that's sort of a bit of what I felt, right? Like, are we saying goodbye to each other, and how would we even do that? we've barely spoken, you know, in so long, if ever, really, you know.
I wonder if sorry, it's Batsy right here. I wonder if, like, in that moment, she also has, like, any regrets, you know, of, like, how things went these past several years, and, like, that she kind of basically, to a degree, kept Rory from spending time with the grandparents for her own reasons and so forth. So, yeah, it's a pretty powerful moment.
I think the regret is a lot stronger than everything. Having been in that position when, you know, you're not really close to your parents, and you don't know what's going to happen, and everything rushes back, and it's not so much just the loss, but the fact that you lost so many years just from that distance. So yeah, I think the regret was a big thing of what we were seeing.
Yeah.
I wonder if Richard was feeling that too.
Well, at this point in the series, Lorelai and Richard haven't had a whole lot of screen time against each other, and certainly they haven't had any alone yet, and that is to come. But I think that y'all are right. It's just a matter of that estrangement and trying to bridge that gap that seems so far away and it seems so impossible. But they're both reaching out in that moment, and he's reaching out to her with his eyes, and she's kind of like echoing back to him.
This is an episode, I mean, I loved it, but this is an episode that absolutely has transformed for me in the post-show discussion. There's so much more to the episode now. It usually like takes me a day to really simmer. Like I have some new thoughts, not completely new, but I have a bit more perspective on the scene yesterday in the kitchen and Lorelai lashing out at Rory. This is a good example of an episode where like I feel like us talking about some of this stuff has changed how I feel about the episode. I certainly really loved it, and there were some really great performances in the episode. But now I really, really love it. Like put it perhaps like at the top of the episodes for me this season, despite the fact that it isn't like, you know, a big world episode.
I think it is a very well-loved episode because it has all of those emotional touchstones, and it has so much character development and just little moments in it that it's a very well-rounded episode.
However, when Dee came into the window, I had it bad boys.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I'm like, what about Dean?
Dean is still awesome in my opinion. I mean, I'm still really digging this character a lot, you know.
It was very brave of him not to run away when Lorelai opened the window.
I will say though that the interactions between him and Lorelai do feel a little flirty to me.
I was going to say that. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay, good. I was actually nervous saying that. I wasn't sure if I was going to get crucified by the Lorelai fans, but like she feels like she's flirting with him. I don't know.
Remember when she first saw him, she said he has that Christopher air.
I don't see it.
Right.
I have to explain that one to me. I don't see it.
Well, actually, there was a headcanon fan theory like years ago, in like just strictly from season 1, that Rory and Luke were a better couple, and Lorelai and Dean were a better couple.
I mean, meaning like if ages were removed from the whole
right,
thing,
right.
Just their personalities.
Yeah.
But I don't see any chemistry between Rory and Luke in the same way that John's mentioning about Lorelai and Dean. Like,
well,
Lorelai
it's not it's not so much the chemistry, it's more of their, like, they both love Indian food, and they both they have similar traits that would complement each other. It's not really about the chemistry.
Personally, I think Lorelai is being more of like kind of like a mothery type of figure rather than a flirty type of figure with Dean. I don't see the flirty, but I see more of like the nurturing, mothery kind.
I mean, she's always making like cute little jokes around him that just feel
the hedge clippers.
It feel, I don't know. I mean, it feels cute. They're both kind of quipping with each other, and that feels flirtatious.
Yeah, I think so from both of them, actually. I think
yeah. I'm not saying it's just from her. I'm saying both of them. He always has a comeback that feels very much the dynamic of two television characters that are flirting.
Absolutely.
I think she like is trying to be like the best friend in those scenarios, and so she's trying to have that kind of like younger relationship with him. And then he has mentioned like how important he knows it is, like, for him and her mom to get along, so then he just kind of goes along with it.
Oh, sorry. It just sounds so creepy when you guys put it out there like that.
That's why I didn't want to mention it. I didn't want that to like ruin anybody's. I was a little afraid, but it felt like the opening was there.
You're not really ruining anything for me long term. I never really thought about it like that before and stuff. Can I just go back to one thing with Lorelai and Emily? With this episode, sure. One of the things I really like about this episode is how it's like they forgive each other without saying it in a way, but we know it's not really all fixed. But I like how she just comes in and she helps her mother and just does things, and they don't dwell on what happened the last time they saw each other. And I like that about the episodes, because it just kind of shows how families can, in times of need, get through things that they need to, and maybe later have to go back to something. But I did like that it wasn't them picking up their fight again that they were having on the phone or wherever else. So at the hospital, I mean. They ended on a good note, I guess, where they were going to the cafeteria together, like mother and daughter.
Yeah, in general, I mean, I thought that was a big part of the purpose of the episode from a story perspective. It felt like this was showing us how this family gets through these types of situations. And also, there was another, and this feeds into my feelings about yesterday and about the freak out when Lorelai, when she says, I would never do anything like that, which we were talking about, like, yesterday, like we were saying, maybe this is just, she's been worked up by Emily, and, because the truth is she does know Rory, and she does know Rory would do anything like that. But the more I came away from, more I was away from the episode, the more I thought about it, the more I felt like, how could she really totally be sure, and if she's not 100% sure, then that would be scary for her. And tonight's episode seemed, at least for me, it seemed to confirm how I felt about that. Because even though she knows Rory's a good girl, she knows what Rory wants, she wasn't ready to completely give in to, yes, I do know you wouldn't do it. She kept saying, uh-huh. Yeah, okay. You know, as if she can feel like it's probably going to happen.
One, she said in this episode, when Rory said, "I swear nothing's gonna happen," and she says, "Don't swear, you are my daughter."
Exactly. You know, so like, yeah, I think that, and also another thing that we didn't talk about yesterday is one of the things that Lorelai goes to almost immediately during that moment in the last episode, where when she's alone there with Rory, almost immediately she goes for the birth control. She's like, "You're going on birth control now," you know, which that sounds like somebody who is legitimately worried about that.
But she said that after Emily told her, like, I don't disagree with what you were saying, but the birth control comment comes right after Emily was like, well, she's gonna do the exact same thing you did, and what kind of mother are you to let this happen to your daughter? So I don't know that the birth control is necessarily just her freaking out, or maybe reflecting on, what if my mother is right? We're putting you on birth control.
Yeah,
I
I mean,
was gonna say, I thought she was more freaking out because here's Rory, who's always been kind of shy and not really into boys. Now since she's into boys, and so I think Lorelai's freaking out a little bit. Yeah, I think it came just from Lorelai, not from Emily, in that birth control comment.
I mean, I buy that Emily, for sure, that Emily ramped up her own, like, she like instigated Lorelai's stress level, right? Like, so she took Lorelai to like the height of her own stress level, which Lorelai would have to sort of be fighting against in the presence of her mother. But what she was stressed out about, I think, was real. I think that had Emily not come over and she had just woken up to Rory having been out all night and Rory walking in, I don't think she would have exploded on her in that way, but I think she wouldn't have been happy.
I find it interesting that she mentioned, what kind of mother would you be if you let that happen? But yet she never takes responsibility for Lorelai getting pregnant. She always like puts that at Lorelai's feet. So it's interesting that she doesn't take that on herself, but if that were to happen to Rory, she was going to blame Lorelai.
I thought she was projecting a lot in that scene. I feel like she actually does probably blame herself, but she just obviously won't admit it, so she just projects it on everybody else.
Oh yeah, Emily's the queen of denial and projection.
What are thoughts on that moment in tonight's episode where she says to Rory, where Rory's like trying to convince her like everything is fine and I'm not going to do that and whatnot, and Lorelai, in more of in a less stressed out. It's not like she's upset about it. She's just sort of accepting it, but does seem to believe that not necessarily that Rory is going to get pregnant, but that like this boy is going to naturally pull you away from the person that you think you are right now. Maybe not this specific boy, maybe this boy, maybe another boy, but that's just natural, because you're my daughter. Does she feel it's okay?
I think it's more that she's aware that it's natural because she's 16 and she's going to be 17 and then 18, and at some point someone's going to do that. Like, I think she's just being realistic and preparing herself for the inevitable.
So what about the and you guys have to really resist not spoiling here, because I do know that there's some folks in the audience that have not watched the show. What about the thought that Rory could potentially follow in the footsteps of her mother and be a single mom, let's say, or a teen mom. Are you feeling at this? Try and put yourself back in the series, like way back. Do you think that it's possible?
I think that's Lorelai's fear, and that's what she doesn't want to have happen. She doesn't want Rory to have to make the choices she made. She wants her to be able to go to college and all that. And I think that's why she maybe freaked out more, like everybody's saying, that because of Emily. But I think she would have freaked out either way, because I think that is Lorelai's fear, that Rory will.
But do you think that's our fear? I mean, is there any worry at all that could happen?
Yeah, because I mean, obviously, one of a parent's biggest fears is that they think they've done a good job, and they look at their kid and they're like, my kid's great, but then there's always that moment, the fact that she didn't come home, where you start to doubt yourself and think, I might have been a good parent, but she's a teenager, and teenagers do what teenagers are going to do. And that fear is that it could happen again, and it's not necessarily because she's following in Lorelai's footsteps, but it's because life is the way it is. And, you can't always prepare for things like that, even a perfect mom.
Exactly. I mean, as a parent myself, we can try to not have our kids, following our footsteps, but, Lorelai she's like, I had you at 16 and you're my daughter. And she's like, I don't want you to, she's basically saying, I don't want you to follow my footsteps. And you could try to raise a perfect child, but in an instant, everything can change. And I mean, I want my kids to be perfect, but there's not a perfect kid out there ever. And our hope is they learn from our mistakes, and that's all we can hope for.
Well, and at some point, hormones come into play.
Yeah, I think that's what she's saying. She's saying, like, as much as you want to, tell me that I know you're a good kid. Like, of course, you're an amazing, remarkable person. But hormones be hormones. Like that's just the way they work. I think I trying to put out of my mind anything that I do know about what's to come. Imagining watching this fresh, I would assume that this show would be more and more about that, and that I would be thinking that Rory may get pregnant at some point before the end of this series.
At this point, are you?
Sorry. Go on.
No, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that's just how the writing is making me feel.
At this point, are you more Team Max or are you Team Luke?
I'm definitely not Team Max. Sorry, Babsy.
Good question.
No, I mean, I think that he's just too smooth. He's just too smooth and slick, and just, I mean, Luke is real, I tend to really gravitate towards characters who are a little broken and who are vulnerable, and Max Medina does not strike me as a vulnerable character. He strikes me as a little self-centered and just a smooth operator, whereas Luke feels like he's just somebody I'm rooting for.
I think
Max just wants to get what he wants.
Hey, by the way, folks, we actually have crossed our 45-minute mark. So I do want to close up the room here in a second. It is a Friday night, so some of us maybe have extended their bedtimes a little bit, but we've got folks on the East Coast that may just actually be fading. I'm going to start making people moderators. The way I like to do this is I will say my goodbyes, and anybody who's a moderator actually, actually can continue in the room past me leaving. The last moderator to leave the room is actually the one to close it. And so I don't know, we're all getting to know one another, and we're really having fun chatting about this show. So I don't want to end that.